All right, guys, so we're going to cover Chapter 8, which is one of my favorite chapters. It covers human development. Through this chapter, we're going to be discussing Piaget's and Vygotsky's theories quite a bit. So I want to start off this with this video to kind of help sum it up. There is an activity that is loaded up in your assignments. I want you to go ahead and print it out and check mark it, and you can upload it into Canvas as your assignment. Also, with this one, I want you to write 200 plus words as to if you are more of a believer of Piaget's theory or Vygotsky's theories and why. If you like bits and pieces of both, tell me which bits and pieces you like the best and tell me why. So here we go. This video is about 5 minutes long, I believe.
My theory of cognitive development is comprehensive and is the only perspective that should be viewed as correct. I disagree. My theory of cognitive development is the obvious choice for explaining how a child learns and develops.
It appears that we have a difference of opinion here. There may be no right or wrong theory of cognitive development, but there are definitely differences between Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development and Lev Vygotsky's cultural historical theory. This lesson will identify those similarities and differences. Jean Piaget developed a theory of cognitive development that described and explained the changes in logical thinking of children and adolescents. Piaget proposed that children proceed through 4 stages based on maturation and experience. Piaget's theory is guided by assumptions of how a learner interacts with their environment and how they integrate new knowledge and information into existing knowledge. Briefly, he proposed that children are active learners that construct knowledge from their environments. They learn through assimilation and accommodation, and complex cognitive development occurs through equilibration. And the interaction with physical and social environments is key for cognitive development, and development occurs in stages. These assumptions are covered in more detail in another lesson. Lev Vygotsky's theory of cognitive development, referred to as his cultural historical theory, focused on the role of culture and social interactions. Vygotsky maintained that speech is a major psychological tool in the child's development of thinking. As the child ages and develops, their basic speech becomes more complex. Vygotsky's theory is guided by 6 major assumptions. Children develop through informal and formal conversations with adults. The first few years of life are critical for development, as this is where thought and language become increasingly independent. Complex mental activities begin as basic social activities. Children can perform more difficult tasks with the help of a more advanced individual. Tasks that are challenging promote cognitive development growth. And finally, play is important and allows children to stretch themselves cognitively. These assumptions are also covered in more detail in another lesson. Vygotsky and Piaget have similarities between their 2 theories of cognitive development. There are also several differences. Let's see how these 2 psychologists differed and agreed on the cognitive development of children and adolescents.
I think the development occurs because the child is an active learner. The child must actively organize new information with existing information to obtain a state of equilibrium. I agree. The child is actively involved in the learning and development process because they provide feedback to the adult or teacher about their level of understanding. I also believe that development declines with age. Yes, agreed. There is a steady increase of development in childhood, then cognitive development declines. I propose that development may be initiated by cognitive conflict. For example, when a child realizes that a new idea does not align with his current thinking or prior knowledge, he will seek out the correct answers in order to align his thinking. I definitely agree with that idea. How do you feel about egocentric speech? You know, the speech from a child that is not addressed to other people, but helps the child move through an activity or problem. I feel that egocentric speech is important to the cognitive development of a child. I agree with you that egocentric speech is important. but I think we may have differing views on why. I feel that development precedes learning. No, I disagree. Learning occurs before development. I stand on the position that maturation influences and drives development. No, development is driven by the child's enjoyment from learning and being around others. I feel that children learn independently, and the source of their cognition comes solely from themselves. I disagree. Children are social creatures, and their source of their cognition comes from their social environment. It is the interaction with other peers and adults that plays a critical role in children's cognition. Getting back to egocentric speech, I feel that development precedes language, and egocentric speech is simply for self-centered purposes, because the child is unable to consider the point of view from others. No, you have it all wrong. Language precedes development, and egocentric speech is a transition between the child's learning language in a social communicative context and attempting to internalize it as private or inner speech.
As we can see from the discussion between Piaget and Vygotsky, there are similarities in their theories. They both agree that the child is an active participant in his or her own learning, and development declines with age. They also both accept the idea that development is driven by conflicts in thinking, and they both acknowledge the existence of egocentric speech. Vygotsky believed that the child is a social being, and cognitive development is led by social interactions. Piaget, on the other hand, felt that the child was more independent and development was guided by self-center focused activities.
Okay, so make sure you print out or upload that assignment and fill it out for me, as well as complete your 200 plus words on whether you believe in Vygotsky's or Piaget's theory the most, and why or why not. Okay. All right. Chapter 8. So our overviews are theories of development, prenatal development and infancy, early and middle childhood, adolescence, early middle adulthood, and your later life. So with developmental psychology, it's obviously, sounds like exactly what it is the study of how humans grow, develop, and change throughout the lifespan. It covers physical, cognitive, and psychosocial domains, and its development is seen as a continuous or as taking place in each stages. This is the essence of cognitive development, and it is refined by schemes. So your schemes are plans of actions to be used in similar circumstances. So your first one is your assimilation. So this is the process of incorporating new objects, events, experiences, and information to existing schemes. So for example, a 5-year-old plays with a ball and sees that it bounces. She is then given an apple which looks like a ball and attempts to bounce the apple, but it doesn't bounce. This has currently changed her schemes of an existing one, knowing that all things round are not going to bounce for your accommodation. So accommodation is modifying existing schemes and creating new ones to incorporate new experiences and information. So that 5-year-old that has had a change in your schemes will help the child adapt intellectually into the future, knowing that all things that are shaped like a ball always do not bounce like a ball. So a round rock is not going to bounce like a ball, like it's supposed to. We're going to go over your Piaget. So Piaget is on, all right, if you turn to chapter 8, page 257 in your text, it will have the chart of Piaget. So Piaget has 4 different stages that he believes in. You had your sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, and your formal operational stages. Your sensory motor stages is from birth to 2 years of age. The infant gains understanding of the world through senses of a motor activity. So what can they see, touch, taste, hear, smell? So infants act on objects and events that are directly perceived to them. So this is development of your object permanence. This is the realization that objects continue to exist when they can no longer be perceived. So at the age of 1, if a ball rolls through underneath the table, all of a sudden that 1-year-old believes that it was eaten alive and they're never going to see their ball back. But at the age 2, they may start to be able to understand that they can just reach under the table and pull their ball back out. This is your object permanence. If the child rolls a ball under the table, he'll she not go looking for it unless they have developed this one. So out of sight, out of mind. Kind of like peekaboo, how you might be standing on the other side of the wall and your 1-year-old is standing on the other side and you go, bah, you might scare the heck out of them and start cracking up laughing. Well, at the age of 2, they might start to develop at this stage knowing that if they look around the corner, you still might be there. So it's not going to be as startling to them when you pop out. Because before, it was out of sight, out of mind. You went around that wall and you just whoosh, disappeared. Where at the age 2, they're starting to develop that figurization, that actualization that you're still around the corner. You're going to jump out and scare them with the peekaboos. Your second stage is your pre-operational stage. This is the ages of 2 to 7. Normally about the ages of 5 to 7, they start going into the concrete operational stage. But the ages of 2 to 7 is normally when the stage is actually going through. So this is when children acquire symbolic functions. So understanding that one thing can stand for another. So your pretend play. It is so funny to see them play at this age. With Reese right now, she's really into making fake food. So we go out in the patio and they have this sand pit and their little house, a little kitchen. So they go and make me and my husband fake food. So they're like, hey, what do you want to eat? I'm like, make me some biscuits and gravy and iced tea. So they come and like, we just checked. We don't have any biscuits and gravy. I'm like, do you have biscuits? Yeah. Do you have gravy? Yeah. Okay. Then just pour that gravy over the biscuits. And they're like, got it. And they go and they run back. She's like, here's your biscuits and gravy, which is just a big pile of mud and sand. The iced tea is a cup that they have found, I don't know where, probably in my kitchen that I didn't want them to take. And then they put a bunch of dirt inside of it and fill it up with water, and it kind of resembles, that yucky, mucky color that iced tea could be sometimes. So they bring me biscuits and gravy and iced tea. Or their baby dolls are actually alive to them. So they play with them and they're really alive. So when you have them in their little car seats, you have to buckle up those babies or all Hades breaks loose at that point. Children do exhibit egocentrism. So this belief that everyone sees what they see and thinks what they think. So if we tell them otherwise, they're like, no, that's not what happens. So my 3-year-old is currently very heavily into this stage. And it can be very frustrating, and then you realize that you're arguing with a 3-year-old and she's just always going to be right even though she's wrong. So this stage, this is your egocentrism when they're trying to learn how to develop and through in the process where not everything that they think may be actually true. So my 6-year-old's kind of in that stage where she's understanding that concept as well. Your third stage is your concrete operational stage. This is about 7 to about 12 years of age, and it's pretty much solely in that stage at age 8. So children acquire the concept of conservation. So this is not conserving water. This is meaning that if you have 2 tall glasses, 2 rock glasses in a tall glass. So you fill that one rock glass with water, you pour it in the rock glass. You pour that same glass of water and you put it in the tall glass. Even though that they may seem like they're very, very different in sizes and shapes, there's still the same amount of water. Or if you have 5 balls and you put it in a circle, and then you clump it together. And then if you spread them out, they're the same amount of balls, they're just spread out differently. So this is kind of what it is. This is your reversibility. So they understand that if this reverses, it'll end up going back to this. If you have silly putty and you have 2 different pieces, and one piece you just flatten it out, it's the same amount of silly putty at that point. Your 4th stage is your formal operational stage. This is 12 years and beyond. So children acquire the capacity for hypothetical deductive thinking. So the ability to apply logical thoughts to abstract and hypothetical situations at that point. It's very important that you write all 4 of these steps down inside your notes and review them well. I'm going to go ahead and sign off on this stage. We're on slide 12 that we're ending off at, and we're going to pick up at slide 13. We're going to probably have 3 different parts to chapter 8 because it's a pretty intense chapter. Okay, guys. Talk to you in a bit.